get started. For everyone who's joining, thank you. My name is Natasha Nurse. I'm the owner and co-founder of Dressing Room Mate, a coaching and consulting platform, and the phenomenal woman next to me, Elaine. How do you say your last name, love?
Oh, it's Pofeldt, equal emphasis on the first and last syllable, but call me Elaine, please.
Gotcha. Elaine. So thank you, Elaine, for joining. I'd love for you to get everyone up to speed in describing just a little bit of who you are, how did you become the woman you are today, and that phenomenal book. I love the title. I can't wait for you to talk all about that.
Oh, sure. Well, I'm a journalist. I've been a journalist for a long time. I was a senior editor at Fortune Small Business magazine, and 11 years ago, I went freelance and have written for a lot of the business publications out there, CNBC, Inc., Forbes, etc. And in January, I wrote a book called The $1 Million One-Person Business, where I looked at an interesting trend, which is the growth of one-person businesses and partnerships that are breaking 1 million in revenue. It's a fast-growing trend enabled by technologies like the ones that we're using at this very moment, and that's why I'm here.
Wonderful. Okay, and what attracted you to wanting to spotlight and focus on entrepreneurs who are making 1 million or more in their business?
Well, I have been a freelancer, as I mentioned, and I didn't know many freelancers who were making $1 million a year in revenue. I think, for most freelancers, it's hard. People want independence, freedom, they want to live their dream, but they find it really hard to manage the money part. A lot of times they're creatives or, people that they learn business as a means to an end. They don't naturally embrace business, but the good thing is it's learnable. And with new technologies, I'm not talking about very elaborate technologies. It's possible to amplify what one person can do way beyond what people used to be able to do. I mean, I'll just give you one example. Websites, right? We take them for granted how easy it is to put them up. When I started my business, I had a consulting gig, and I was asked to help them select a website provider for a simple website for a business. The prices were coming in at $50,000 and $75,000, right? Now I can one of my middle school kids put up a website for free, basically, or $200, so that alone increases people's reach. But there are many other tools. I mean, like this phone that we're doing the Facebook Live on. When I do events, I do Facebook Lives. I use it as a Square terminal when I'm selling my books, and I have a mileage tracker on there tracking my mileage for the accountant. So you can accept payments on it from Venmo. I mean, there's so many different things, and we don't really realize how much it empowers us, but it truly does.
Awesome. Okay. And what would you say is the common formula or things that amongst all the people that you spoke with have said, okay, these are the 3 things you need to do to be able to go from 0 to 1 million?
There isn't really a formula for this. It's more of a mindset. It's what I found was they take a lot of the risk out of the equation. People think of like, I have to quit my job, start a business, dive into it 100%, go, live in my car until I make this work. That really isn't what they do. A lot of times they start the business on the side while they still have a paycheck coming in. So that helps to fund the business, and it keeps them out of desperation mode where they can't afford to pay their bills, and it keeps them from having to short circuit the business before it's time just because they run out of money. I mean, we all see those, like a restaurant in our town where we're like, oh, that looks awesome, I think I'm going to try it, but you don't get around to it, and then it's closed by the time you finally make the decision because they didn't have the money to get it going. So you need to give yourself some time. Most people, when they say save 6 months to a year's worth of living and business expenses, who can do that really? I mean, it's few people can, but like if you have a family, 6 months to a year of living expenses is a lot. So they take the risk out by starting it on the side. They do small experiments. So for instance, Camille and Ben Arneberg, one couple that started an Amazon store, they just ordered small amounts of inventory of maybe 6 or 7 different products and did a little horse race. And they said, okay, which ones did best? They discounted the ones that didn't do well, and then they doubled down on the ones that did. And people do that with Facebook advertising too, you know, which
Right.
I know you know a lot about Facebook, but you
Yeah.
do an ad, it's working, you put more money behind it. And
Mm-hmm.
then the problem becomes, can you actually fulfill it, you know? So,
Interesting. Absolutely. Now, would you say amongst all the people that you've spoken to and interviewed, are they all product-based business owners, or is it product and service?
product and service. It's very interesting. I even have a fine arts painter who's doing it. She's not in the book. I met her after the book, but her name is Iris Scott, and she created a market for her work on Facebook. She is written up in art magazines, and then she's a serious artist. She was selling her paintings originally for $50. She was told in art school you have to price your paintings high out of the starting gate. She said, no, I think art should be democratic. I think more people should afford art. She put it up there. When a painting sold out, she would raise the price a little bit, maybe to $100. Well,
Yeah.
long story short, she now makes paintings that sell for $45,000.
Beautiful.
And, you know, and that was because she went outside the rules. She didn't care how it was done in the art world, or the snobby reasons why her paintings had to be priced at really high prices from the moment she graduated from art school. She went with her heart and made it accessible, and it paid off. And she has a very passionate following on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, and I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your background as a journalist, because I too, similar to you, I write on various publications, lifestyle editor of Plus Model magazine, and I have found that when I started my business that I wanted to include the media because it was going to be an opportunity for me to meet other people like yourself who are just doing badass things, and it could help in rejuvenate and educate me on things that I didn't know, but then also be able to touch different platforms very easily. How has being a journalist, I guess, helped you as an entrepreneur, and also with your book and your book promotion and sales and all that?
Well, being a journalist is very entrepreneurial, although I think journalists tend not to be so motivated by money. We're motivated by our passion for what we're writing about, or for writing itself, or photography. But I find, you know, just to get sourcing, when I started out in my career, the first 7 years I was a street reporter, so I'd be thrown on all kinds of crazy stories, and you'd have to find people that didn't necessarily want to talk to you. And I remember one time I was trying to reach someone who was a cab driver, and I went to the cab stand, and on a scrap of paper, I gave my phone number to one of the other cabbies. I was asking if they knew him, and this one guy seemed like he might know him, so I just left it with him. The guy called me when I get back to the newsroom. This was before mobile phones, so you know, that's how you do. Even today, you know, it's networking, it's finding clues, it's figuring out, you know, what is the email formula at this one place I'm writing to so I can get to the right person. You have to be pretty resourceful. So
absolutely,
the leap to having my own business was not really that hard, because the same detective work you put into starting a business. I mean, I was hiring freelance writers. Maybe you do too, and I knew how it worked basically, but I didn't know how to be a freelance writer. So the first day of my business, I called some people and emailed them and said, hey, I went into business as a freelance writer. Any advice? And that's how I got my first assignment. One of my former writers didn't want to do it, and it was an assignment for Good Housekeeping, actually, and so it was nice. Good, you know, good publication, and you know, it was like being willing to ask questions, throw yourself into it, make yourself a little vulnerable. But that's how entrepreneurs have to be. That's why I think journalists and entrepreneurs get along, because we're kind of birds of a feather in a way, and you know, and how
absolutely. Absolutely. Now, for everyone watching, if you're not aware, and Adrienne has said that she's got such a great inspirational stories about business who operate to $1 million or more, have freedom of time. Thank you, Adrienne. Yes. So she's joining us. So for everyone who's not aware, both me and Elaine are speakers at She Leads 2018. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what people should expect from you from the conference, why you're excited about the conference, and I'll do the same.
Oh, sure. Well, I'm really excited because I was looking at the lineup of the incredible women. I don't want to mention any names because they were all awesome, and I'm planning to spend a lot of time there. I think it's really great to get women together. It's a time when we're all thinking a lot about women and their role in the business world and the workplace, and why some of the things we were talking about 2 decades ago haven't been resolved. But I think there is a tremendous power in coming together, sharing ideas, learning from each other, being open, being candid. There's a lot that happens when people come into a room and they're all there for the same thing. I mean, I just love it. I really love being in groups of women leaders. I also think that sometimes women shy away from being leaders. They feel like, I need a little more experience before I can do that. Like I see them
I hear that a lot.
credibility. And I think men feel more confident. I don't know why they do. Maybe society set up more to reinforce them. But I think sometimes jump in before you're ready. I mean, I see some younger women really diving in at younger ages, being leaders in their fields. And that's what I hope to see more of, because you can learn on the job as a leader. And so conferences like this are awesome for women, just to give them role models, new things to try in their toolkit.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. I think that, I forget the article where it came out, but it showed how like women, unless we feel like we have like 70 or 80% of a job application, like we won't even apply, versus men will totally apply, even even if they're like, it's a long shot, they're like, yeah, well, like we'll just jump, right? And I agree with you. You have to jump even if you don't feel ready, because why? Everything in life is a working progress, right? You'll never have the ultimate website and you never have to update it. You always are updating everything. You're updating your profiles, you're updating your resume, you're updating your career. Like I don't understand this idea of like fixation of like, I'm not going to do something until I'm there. Well, that point in time is always going to be moving. So I think that's great advice. And Adrienne did say that she agrees that journalists and entrepreneurs get along so well. So that's very, very true.
Well, yeah, and I think journalists understand the need to communicate about something that you like, a product you've invented or a new service you're offering, and they really appreciate it. I mean, just being a journalist, I'm going to be on the Pitching the Media panel, and some people are really thorough in researching what I cover, in understanding. I write for a lot of national business publications. They want numbers. They want financial, they understand what I need, and they don't try to talk me out of it, because they respect the publication and the fact that they're thorough. They're ready, with the basics at hand. They're not, I think people have become a lot more fluid in terms of not trying to control the story so much, and sort of trusting that, I want to tell the story well, and so do the other media people, despite all the talk about fake news and that sort of thing. Anyone who deals with real journalists knows how serious they actually are about that. I have yet to come across any journalist I've worked with who was creating fake news or whatever. People, they want to get it right. They want to tell a good story. Why would they even do this field if, it's so low paying? It's like, to do a bad job, you do it. It's a labor of love. Maybe some people are inexperienced and they make mistakes, but so does every type of professional. So I think it's good to get yourself out there, but remember, the story is never about you. It's about them. It's about the client. It's about the market. It's about the publication. Absolutely. So just like the Dale Carnegie, like you don't want to be the person at the party that just talks about yourself the whole time, right? You want to listen to what the publication needs, and then you're going to be very sought after. The people that are good with one media outlet tend to be good across all of them, because they get that, and they can also tweak their messaging, right? If you're pitching to a magazine for business women, the pitch might be a little different than if it's a general business publication, or if the demographic is millennials versus people in their 50s, 60s. There's always a story that you can tell, but you've got to really think about, well, like the who cares question. Why did this person really care? They're so busy, so many things on their time. So what's in it for them to listen to me when everybody else is trying to get their ear?
Exactly. Yeah, I think, and I think everyone watching and watching this on the live or replay, guys, this is what we're going to be talking about and on the Pitch to Media panel, that, how you tell this story matters. who you tell the story to matters as well. Why are you talking to someone in sports if this is a human interest issue, right? Like doing your own due diligence. Also looking up the journalist. Maybe that journalist also has a Twitter page, right? Get to know the person. Try to develop a relationship. I think that people forget that journalists are like human beings, right? And the same way that you would go to a networking event and you would try to say and speak in a certain way, journalists need to be spoken to as human beings, and you need to kind of relate to them. I think that they're humans and right, we're human beings, and so I think how you connect with us matters. What would you say are some of the mistakes to avoid when it comes to like speaking with journalists? Because I think that that's something people don't know, like the things not to do. Like they may read it on a blog post, but like real talk, like of all the years of experience you have, what are things you would say, please, guys, don't do these 4 or 5 things?
Well, I would say one thing is just be very straightforward. If you're working with a journalist on a story and it's taking a little while for the story to run, you have to understand how overworked journalists are. Things come up, the news cycle changes. Sometimes it's not good timing to run a particular story because of something else that's in the news. Sometimes I've had people, they're so impatient, they'll like be checking in with me every single day, and then a week passes and then they do an end run and pitch it to someone else on the same publication. Well, we talk, and so I find out that if they're doing the story, I'm not going to do it then, and now we've both wasted our time. Or it could embarrass the journalist. Like, what if they both post something on the same day, not knowing? Sometimes some people have outside contributors. So, will I work with that person again if they've done that? I would really be reluctant, because it wasn't respectful of anybody's time. So that's a big mistake I see, because people they're so into instant gratification today that they can't wait a single minute for the story to run, not realizing it takes us time to craft a good story. We don't want to tell it badly, and maybe, we're humans, like you said. Maybe one day we're not feeling that inspired. We're waiting, for that perfect lead, or we need a good photo. That's another mistake would be not having the collateral. Like if you're pitching the media, it used to be that they had a photo editor and they come out and shoot you. And most publications don't have that anymore. So you should have a good headshot. You shouldn't be pitching them and say, oh, I got to go get a headshot done, and then come back to them in 2 weeks. That happens a lot, because people don't get them done. You can go to Glamour Shots. I'm not being paid by Glamour Shots, by the way, but for people who need it, it's very easy to get one. It's a couple of $100s. You can bring 3 outfits with you. So then you'll have, and get multiple poses. So then you'll have a whole bunch of different ones to send out. You can airbrush it a little bit and, fix you up. They foof your hair when you're there and all that stuff. So if you feel like you just don't have a good one, I'm sure there's other companies that do it too. That's the one I know. Get one done before you start pitching. And then the other mistake would be, don't expect to get a profile, because your business has to be really interesting to get a profile. People always think that business is really interesting, but journalists have a lot of stories. So they might feel like you're a better person to be a thought leader in a roundup on a certain topic. It's no less to get a good quote in a longer story. So whatever they give you in terms of space is a start. You can always build on that. You can come back to the same journals and say, remember we chatted about this? Well, this new thing has happened. So that's, you're talking about building relationships. That's important, but be useful. Like if they don't really think you're ready for a profile, badger them, just, keep working on your business so you are ready. So you have a good story. I also have people that are, in what I do, it's business journalism. So they contact me, they do have a good idea, but they have no revenue coming in. Well, I can't really tell that story yet, because it's not even really a business. If it's not selling anything, doesn't mean it won't be in a month. I'll take the first month's revenue if it's strong enough. That tells me the person can actually sell something, which means it has some potential as a business. You don't have to even have a founder, but if you don't want to tell it at all, then there's no business story. Just share the story of how you started up. Then you might have to pitch it a different way. If you don't want to share that, maybe, if you're a handbag maker, maybe you pitch it to fashion magazines or accessories magazines, or to Instagram personalities, or, that's the other thing. Another mistake I think people make is confining themselves to the traditional media. Because
Mm.
I came out of the traditional media, and it makes me sad what's happened to it.
Yeah.
All these new media have opened up new voices, new
Mm-hmm.
communities, new gatekeepers. And
Mm-hmm.
there's some people, I think in the past, a lot of people were kept out of the media because the gatekeepers were the same people and they weren't interested in certain topics. And,
Mm.
it wasn't that they were actively trying to keep people out. It was just, it didn't resonate with them because personally they weren't interested. So now there's, if
Mm-hmm.
you, one person's not interested, go to
Yeah.
somebody else, go to a blogger, go to, a
Mm-hmm.
video blogger.
Exactly.
And the other mistake is feeling like print is the only medium. On video is really
Absolutely.
helpful.
Yeah.
Audio. I mean, I found with my
Yeah.
book, I didn't really listen to too many podcasts before my book came out because, frankly, I have 4 children, and when I'm in the car,
Mm-hmm.
you can't hear a thing in my car. It's too noisy. So,
Yeah.
it just wasn't really an option. Either I'm, working,
Yeah.
doing something with my kid. But I started listening to them a little bit if I go for a walk, and I've been on more than 50 podcasts about the book.
Amazing.
And I found it's so valuable because each podcast has its own audience. So it might be women entrepreneurs, e-commerce
Yep.
entrepreneurs. There's
Yep.
infinite variations on the theme. And then you go to different countries and,
Yep.
different size of businesses. I've been on businesses, podcasts for scalable businesses, for
Yeah.
person businesses, for freelancers. It just goes
Mm.
endless, and they have audiences. It does sell
Mm-hmm.
books, and they ask really good questions. Maybe because they're not jaded. They, most of them are new to podcasting because the medium itself is pretty new. So it's not like they've been asking the same podcast questions for the last 20 years, the way maybe a veteran business journalist
Yeah.
might have been. So there's sort of a freshness to it. A lot of them are business people, so they ask good questions about businesses that are really
Mm-hmm.
illuminating. And I've really, really enjoyed talking with them. I never get
Cool.
tired of it. And I
Yeah, outside of
other people to do it.
I'm glad to hear that, because outside of Dressing Your Maid, I have a podcast as well with my husband. It's called Woken Free, and if you're interested, we can chat offline, and I can
Cool.
tell you.
Yeah, it sounds. I like the title. It doesn't have to do with entrepreneurship, or
So Woken Free is about the idea of talking about education and entertainment, right? So when we talk about all these subjects, we have to, me and my husband were just kind of concerned about how people were having public conversations and not necessarily being the most educated on the subject and distilling information. And this idea of like fake news, right? People will run with something and it not be correct. So like, let's be educated, let's have some fun, and have a good time. So I'm glad to hear that you've been tapping into that platform as well. And that kind of leads to my next question of, when it comes to, especially like having your book out, and you said being resourceful, what were you doing to kind of get the word out there? What was your strategy? Did you have a strategy, or did you work with a team? Like, what are tips that you can have for people interested in getting a book out? What do they do, right? Because if you write the book, that's one thing, but how do you like get it distributed?
it's a multi-pronged thing. What I heard, which turned out to not be true, was that the publicists at the book publishing houses are not very good.
Yeah.
That turned out not to be true. I had a really great publicist, and I'm still actively working with him. And
Cool.
I figured I didn't put a publicist on retainer. I just figured because I'm in the media already, I have a lot of connections, and I don't mind doing some legwork. Like if if someone gives me an excerpt, I can do the excerpt myself. I'm an experienced magazine and online editor.
Yeah.
So I figured, I put a little bit of sweat equity into it, basically to save the, $5,000 to $15,000 a month retainer fee. And then I reached out to my contacts at different size publications, and I said, hey, I have this book coming out. This is why it might be interesting to you. If I could do a guest post for you, because a lot of them need content. And if you are a good writer, I turn in clean copy that they can just put up. So it's saving them a little bit of work. It was copy they didn't have to pay for. So I had a number of excerpts.
Wow.
Q&As and that sort of thing. A lot of times people now will send you for a Q&A. They'll send it to you by email, so you write good answers and make them clean and follow their word count and that sort of thing. It's just sort of making it easy for people, because they are so overworked. So if you give them something that's like this big sprawling excerpt that's twice as long as it's supposed to be, when is that going to run? The person doesn't have time to edit it. So you just think about, how can I make it easy for them? I had my press kit. That was the thing that the Random House publicist created. So everything was in there. There was a press release about the book. Had a professional photo shoot done. That really helped. I was on Mentor Box, which might be something not everybody is familiar with. Fun. That was a good community for my type of book. I went to San Francisco. I did a video of the course, and I still hear from people from that. That was very fruitful. I wound up doing a blog for the Tim Ferriss blog. That was helpful.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal.
My book were inspired by him. And so it was really interesting 10 years later to see like the fruits of some of his ideas, plus other ideas as well, brought together in these businesses. And so he was interested because so many were inspired by him. But that's an example of thinking about, like, why would he even care, right? A zillion people are pitching him. Well, they truly were. They all told me that they learned so much from him. So you have to think about that too. Who are the natural people who will be interested in what you have to say? It might be totally different if you wrote a book about another topic. And then reaching out to influencers, bloggers, people on Twitter. When people would contact me, if they liked it, I would try to find out a little more about them and see, can I help them? I have not been a public speaker much in the past, but I've become one since the book came out. And I had to think about this a little bit because I didn't have much experience with like a keynote type of speech. So I came up with a strategy that worked for me and my skill set, which is to take a group of panelists from the actual book and bring them together under one roof and interview them on stage. And then people from the audience can ask them questions. Because I thought, like, are they really going to be that interested in me? Like, I'm their author. And yes, I do have the high level perspective of having interviewed a lot of people who fit this category. But something so much fun about meeting real people, just like yourself. And they're very varied in terms of ages, demographics, where they live.
Very cool.
So it was very relatable, I think, to a lot of people. I'm still doing these events. I have one on October 24th in Brooklyn, New York, coming up in the evening. And that one's going to have 7 panelists. And I get so excited before each one.
Awesome.
Because, as you know, because you're a journalist, when you're a reporter, your work is never done. So I do these panels. I'm like, oh darn, I missed that in the book. I should have. They bring out another new aspect. Of it. And I love hearing a little more. And there's the chemistry too. Of people together, like you guys are doing panels that she leads, and and I think that's so important because there is that kinetic energy of people sort of feeding off each other, being around other people with similar interests, where just something new comes out that wouldn't in the one-on-one conversation.
Absolutely. And Adrienne had a question. She said, as a journalist, what did it feel like to be on the other side and pitch yourself?
It was very comfortable for me, actually, because I know how to do it in a way without being a pest. If it's not relevant, I understand that. I don't take it personally. If I'm pitching a friend, if it works for them or we can find a way that it works, then I'll go for it. And fortunately, there was enough interest that I didn't, I still have leads I haven't fully followed up on. Obviously, you want to have a little bit of a strategy. So with the bigger outlets, you have a higher impact. But then there were some ones that I just loved the audience, and I felt it was important to be in front of that audience. For instance, E-commerce Fuel is a good podcast. There's a lot of people in e-commerce in my book, not all by any means. So that's a good audience. So that was one of the early ones that I did. But there are new ones I never even heard of that are contacting me, and they're turning out to be wonderful.
Phenomenal.
So, the pitching, like what I don't forget, I'm a freelance writer, right? So the last 11 years, my living is basically on spec. 100%, right? I have one retainer client at the moment, and some like kind of quasi retainers, but basically these things can end at any moment. So the moment I'm not relevant or useful, the relationship ends. So that gives you a little bit of
Yeah.
a fire under you, you know, in terms of like, I'm not going to
Yeah.
waste this email. My pitch is going to be 2 perfect sentences long. It's not going to be,
Mm.
you know, long, meandering. I don't even know what this pitch is about. I focus, you know, the work is the
Yeah.
thinking. It's like, okay, why is this relevant to Inc. magazine? Inc. is different from
Mm.
Entrepreneur, or different from Fortune, or different from Money. So
Gotcha.
why, you know, and that thinking is harder than the writing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you have to get very clear about what you're going to say, and how is it going to land, right? And just being tenacious. And I would say, yeah, I mean, you have to. I think everyone, even whether you're a journalist or not, you have to be comfortable pitching yourself. Otherwise, you'll never get your product, you'll never get your business, anything you're doing won't get out there. So you have to, kind of like what you said, like before, about the idea of embracing it, right? Like business, you're saying people hold business off at kind of like an arm's length, and it needs to be like one and the same, right? Like you are your business, and it needs to be very comfortable. And same thing with pitching. I think the more that you get used to storytelling, the more that you get used to like, why is this interesting? How can I speak to the person and them wanting to hit me back, is, you know, hit back on email. I think that will be key. And then also I would add reaching people on their medium of choice, right? Like I've spoken to other journalists,
yes,
right? Like they only want to communicate to you on Twitter. Some people only want to communicate on LinkedIn. Some people only want to communicate in person. Some people only want to communicate over the phone. Like finding the medium of choice to meet the person is quintessential, because people are specific and they have wants and preferences, and you need to feed into that. If you want your story to land somewhere, then that you've got to be willing to be flexible in that way.
Yeah, you're so right. The flexibility is really important. That's one
Yeah.
mistake I didn't really get into, but it's, you know, sometimes people have like cute titles or something for their job, or, and, you know, and they insist that you get that into the story, but you can't use that title in a news story. You know, it's just like they're the CEO, that's it, like not the CEO-ista, or, you know, maybe they call it that internally. It's, you know, and they'll fixate on things like that. You know, you have to be flexible and be like, I understand it's a serious business publication. They're not my marketing arm. So I'm going to let that little thing go, as long as the big story is correct. Correct. Exactly. Not necessarily what you want, because people don't always know what's interesting about them. A lot of times an experienced journalist can talk to you and find some things that are really quirky and interesting that you don't even know make you different, because you don't have the sample size that they do from having interviewed people, where they're like, wow, I haven't heard somebody invent something like this before, you know, or I haven't heard a story like this, or someone in this demographic. You know, I had a guy I wrote about on Forbes who is 69 years old. He started his $1 million one-person business at age 62, after having like a run of very difficult health luck. And he's doing great now. His health turned around.
That's awesome.
And people love this story. I mean, I love the story because, you know, it's like, you don't think of a 62-year-old starting an e-commerce store and then, you know, building it to $2 million. You think, you know, maybe they'll create a lifestyle business. So that, just that in itself, the gardening store that he started wasn't really that remarkable. I mean, it's a great little gardening store, but that the fact of that store existing isn't the story.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. And rebounding from serious health problems, not having a way to make a living. His disability ran out, and he was kind of back against the wall. He could not talk on the phone a lot because he had a chronic cough also. He had to find work where he couldn't drive, because he didn't have to drive, and he didn't have to talk on the phone. And his research brought him to e-commerce, right? So that, to me, that was so interesting.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that wasn't really what he was pitching me, but that's what I heard, and people really responded to it, because there's a lot of people in a predicament like that, where working the traditional way is not working for them anymore.
Absolutely.
That's, you know, that's where you have to be open to what the journalist sees, because that story did really well. It got a lot of readers. I knew it would, because it was so heartwarming, you know, and he probably, you know, just, this was my life, you know, he probably didn't think much of it. So that's what I would say. And flexibility on all fronts, in terms of timing, everything else is important too. Just you got
Absolutely.
to work together. It's a collaboration. The more you feel like it's a
Absolutely.
collaboration and not a battle of wills,
Yes,
the more
absolutely.
media you will get.
Yes. And with that, you know, I know you're busy. So if people want to hear more from Elaine, what do you guys got to do? You got to go to She Leads 2018. It's the pinned comment. You can go get your tickets, get them before they run out, because you don't want to miss seeing her and hopefully not miss seeing me. So will your books be available at She Leads 2018, or
Yeah, they
do you
will.
know?
They will be available. So
Very
stop by,
cool.
say hello. I love meeting entrepreneurs and women leaders. So I hope
Awesome.
to meet a lot of people.
Yes, absolutely. I can't wait to meet you in person, and I can't
Likewise.
wait to get a copy of that book. I want to definitely read all those stories. And like, guys, who doesn't want to make $1,000,000? So like, come on, get a copy of her
You know
book.
what? I want to see more women breaking 1,000,000. We have more doing it, but there's
Yes,
a lot of room for growth on that metric. And so
yes,
this is my personal challenge to everybody
yes,
who's listening. Set a
mm,
big goal with your revenue, because more
yes,
women can do it than are doing it, and
yes.
more women will do it, especially because of events like this.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, guys, you know what, like I said, what we have to do. If you want to see us, come to She Leads 2018, October 26th. That's where we're going to be. If you're not going to be there, you're missing out and you don't want $1,000,000. So that's what you're saying to the universe. So I did include the link to your website. Did you have any other announcements or anything else that you'd like to share before we get off the air?
Oh, well, thank you for that, Natasha. Yeah, I'd love for
Yeah.
anybody listening who wants to get in touch. I write back. Follow me on Twitter under my name, or LinkedIn if you have business questions, things like that. I like to hear what's on the minds of business people so that I can write relevant articles. Sorry, that's
Yes.
fax machine ringing.
That's okay.
I forgot we even had one. Honestly, we haven't used it in so long. Of course, we get the one fax now. But anyhow,
Yeah.
Elaine Pofeldt on LinkedIn or Twitter, write to me. Love to hear from you. And I'm
Perfect.
so looking forward to meeting all the great women who are coming to She Leads.
Absolutely. And thank you, Adrienne, for tuning in. And thank you for everyone watching on the live. And if you watch us on the replay, have questions, put #replay so we can both, me and Elaine can go in and we can see that and respond to you guys. Okay. So we'll see you October 26th, She Leads 2018. All right.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.